My brother Ed and my father were with our grandfather, also a William Pascal Butler, when he was dying, and they each were holding a hand, and they heard Grandpa taking some last labored breaths, and my father said to him, "Dad, you've run the good race." And my grandfather died shortly after that, and so 2 Timothy 4 verses 6 through 8 were chosen. My life is being given as an offering to God, and the time has come for me to leave this life. I have fought the good fight, I have kept the faith, I have run the good race. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not only to me, but unto all of them that love his appearing. Now I'd like to introduce my father's good friend, Hector Garcia.
Hey everybody.
Hello.
I'm Hector, and this is my wife Brianna, and she's going to be helping me with this laptop.
I'm his sidekick.
I've been on medication for quite a while, so I can't hold it. So we're here to celebrate the gifts that Bill Butler gave to our lives and to future generations. I was honored, truly honored, to be among Bill's many, many friends. Bill and Ellie and I met through the global peacemaking and trust building movement called Moral Rearmament. I'm sure many of you heard him and Ellie speak about it.
Yep.
And that organization was launched in 84 years ago, in the 30s, to counter the weapon rearmament that was taking place in Europe. So it's a moment, a time of crisis, not unlike the one we're living today. And one day when I was visiting Bill, I was talking to him about how concerned I was, not for myself or for him because we were on our way out, but for our grandchildren. And, you know, strong and calmly, as he always was, he said, "Well, Hector, our generation was faced with the Great Depression and the Second World War, and we did pretty well, and we overcame it. Somehow, I sensed that he was leaving us a legacy of responsibility to carry the torch, to emulate the courage that the greatest generation demonstrated." And so, one time we were over at the Caux Castle in Switzerland, overlooking Lake Genève. Perhaps some of you went over there. That was the conference center for the, not only for moral rearmament, but for other organizations that moral rearmament had created. The Caux Roundtable, an association of global CEOs that still exists and is under the management of a good friend of Bill's and mine, Steve Young, who couldn't make it here today because he's in New York City. And I was in the lobby and noticed that Bill and Ellie were observing me very persistently with a smile on their face. So I approached them and they said, "You know, we're watching your skills at starting relationships with the people you're meeting here." Little did I know at the time that he was the superb networker, and was very pleased because he introduced me to a great many people, both at MRA and elsewhere. And that's how our very long and fruitful relationship began. It was long-lasting and highly rewarding. So, through him I met other altruistic persons, inventors such as our friends Mike and Martha Port back there, who worked with him with solar ovens, helping poor people across the world, and many other people who were always thinking about how they could make a positive change in society. We would often we would often meet at another movement that was started with the inspiration of moral rearmament, which was the Immigrant Community Roundtable. And this was an effort to establish better communication, better relations between law enforcement and community. And there was a third friend of ours, Larry Walker, who is also unable to be here today because he's in Switzerland with his wife, Judy, but sends his condolences and greetings to all of you. And we achieved very significant things. It's surprising what a group of committed volunteers can do. And Bill not only volunteered to help us with ideas, but he helped Larry Walker start an electronic network with hundreds and hundreds of immigrants or immigrant organizations and the Immigrant and Naturalization Services, which is now ICE and CIS. So he did so many things for other people and with other people. He was truly an inspiration. And I'd like to thank Bill for his century, more than a century of contributions to our minds, to our hearts, and to our spirits. Before leaving us temporarily, because we'll be meeting him soon, he shared his last invention, the Butler grant. And I'm sure many of you read it. It was a great combination of humor and wisdom to light our way. And I'd like to paraphrase the words that he used whenever he ended that Butler grant. God loves you, Bill, and so do I.
Thank you.
That Ben picked this because I feel like Uncle Bill really understood that everything is connected. Humans, all beings. So this is from Black Elk, and it's offering of the pipe prayer. Grandfather, great mysterious one, you have been always, before you have been nothing. The star nations all over the universe are yours, and yours are the grasses of the earth. Day in and day out, you are the life of things. You are older than all need, older than all pain and prayer. Grandfather, all over the world, the faces of the living ones are alike. In tenderness, they have come up out of the ground. Look upon your children with children in their arms, that they may face the winds and walk the good road to the day of quiet. Teach me to walk the soft earth, a relative to all that live. Sweeten my heart and fill me with light, and give me strength to understand and the eyes to see. Help me, for without you I am nothing. So it be.
Son David and I were just commenting that we don't expect to have nearly this kind of a crowd when we come to our memorial. Bill and Ellie had such an unusual family. It's not very common. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other side of Bill. Bill was the oldest in our family of 4 boys. He was my big brother, 9 years older than I am. I thought he was the smartest of all of us because I heard he skipped a grade in school. One day I heard music coming from the basement. We didn't have a radio. I went down the steps and saw Bill scratching a needle on something and holding in his left hand. He explained to me it was a crystal set. He could get radio signals on his crystal set. I couldn't understand how it worked. Another time he showed me how to make a telephone by tying 2 paper cups on the ends of a heavy cord. I was his little brother. He liked to tell me how things worked. At our cabin at Clear Lake, I remember watching my big brother Bill open a box containing a build-it-yourself kayak. He built the kayak, but what he really wanted was a sailboat. So he fastened a board on one side of the kayak that acted as his keel. He fastened a broken oar on the back for a rudder. He found a large bamboo fishing pole that he fastened to the deck for a mast. And he made a sail by sewing 10 used flour bags together that he got from the local bakery. He had a sailboat. He let me sail it. A few years later, with the help of our dad, he bought a used gaff-rigged, flat-bottomed boat from Amundsen Boat Works here in White Bear. He raced it on Clear Lake and let me crew with him. It was Bill that I owed a debt of gratitude for introducing me to my love for sailboat racing. Bill was creative. I watched him take a 10-gallon metal pail, cut a hole in the side, cover the hole with a glass window, fasten an air line between the pail and a bicycle pump in a rowboat, fasten sandbags to the sides to weigh the pail down, and he had himself a deep-sea diving helmet. A person in a rowboat pumped air into the helmet while Bill explored the bottom of the lake for whatever had been lost overboard by boaters. One day he found an old lantern, and he gave it to the Clear Lake Yacht Club, and it became the prize for the boat that came in last in the last race of the season of each year. Our mother died when she was 85. Dad died when he was 89. Dad was 89 when Mother died. Dad married an old friend, Esther, whose husband had died 20 years earlier. It didn't work out, and Esther's daughter picked Esther up and took her to Arizona. Dad said to me one day, "Marriage has its problems. I should have just had Esther move in with me." I told Bill about this when we had lunch together. He couldn't believe that Dad would say that. Well, I kind of doubted it too. My son had awakened me to the realities of the times when he said, "Dad, living together now is like holding hands was to you in your younger years." I guess it's okay. After all, if you're going to get married, you ought to get acquainted first. Bill and I had lunch together about 2 weeks before he died. He was still alert and talkative. I'm 93, well, I'll be 94 in 10 days, and I'm still playing tennis.
All right.
At my age, people used to say, well, that's amazing that you're still playing tennis. I could answer, well, that's nothing. I got a brother who's 102.
Mm-hmm.
Bill was one of the persons who inspired me to take on the task of writing a family history. He had written his autobiography and given me a copy. He said I should write an autobiography, but I was too busy with other things and didn't pay any attention. But I never forgot what he told me. Now that I've decided to do some writing, I've reviewed what he wrote, and I like his stories about our great-grandparents, and have included those in our history book. What turned out to be an autobiography has now turned into a Butler family history. And I've asked the family members to add some memories. I've had 16 responses from family members with their stories, and they're all going to be in the book. Bill was a great brother and a good friend.
Join us in singing This Is My Song. And if you don't have a copy of the lyrics, cozy up to somebody who does. You'll stay a little warmer. Starting note. Hum.
Do you know the song?
Is that a little too low? Let's see. Let's try that one. Okay.
Okay. And then get us started.
Stay there.
Get us started, Annie.
Stay there.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, as far out east, to lands afar and this is my home, the country where my heart is.
Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine.
My country's stars are the world of the ocean, and sunlight gleams on clover leaf and vine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, oh God of all the nations, a song of peace for land and for mine.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm Dwight, fourth son, Butler family, alphabetical Butler family. And I didn't really compare notes with Uncle Dave, and this is kind of funny because Al sent me his version of the little boat in Clear Lake, and I do want to read it because I think it's cute that apparently Al got this out of Bill's autobiography. He said, "My dad bought a flat-bottom rowboat for $7. I enjoyed swimming, diving, and rowing our boat. I read a book on sailing and converted our rowboat into a crude sailboat. My mother sewed a sail out of some old sheets. We used trimmed pine tree for a mast. My dad had to come along to hold up the mast. I mounted an oar lock on the stern and used it as an oar, as a rudder. One day we're caught in the mighty wind. and the old boat surged ahead. The centerboard hummed like a harp string. My lifelong love of sailing began. So those are Bill's words, according to my brother Al. And I wrote a little something, and it's kind of a coincidence that it's also about sailing, but when my father, Bill Butler, was in high school, he drove from Clear Lake, Iowa up to White Bear Lake and purchased a used Sea Scow gaff rig sailboat. The story goes that he looked across the beautiful water and he said, I'm gonna live here someday. 15 years later, that dream came true when Bill, Ellie, and their 3 sons moved to Birchwood, White Bear Lake in 1952. 3 more children were born, bringing our family size to 8. That was Ellie's dream. I'm not sure how and Bill managed us all, but they did it. And we will forever be grateful. Dad, your inquisitive mind and quest for knowledge is an inspiration. Thanks for being you. Now, this is another note that Al sent in his memory of sailing as a young child with Bill. And he begins, this is like the email I received this morning. He says, Fabricia and I are sorry that we can't be with you today. One day we want to come, who knows, maybe with a sailboat. They're living in France. Then here's a quote from Ratty from Wind in the Willows. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, half so much worth doing as simply messing about in boats. And then Al's recollection. When Ben and I were 3 and 4, Bill and Ellie took us sailing for the first time. It was morning, all was quiet. We put the sail bags into the canoe, paddled out to the boat. The mainsail and jib were hoisted. Bill sat at the helm. Ben and I sat forward on the floor. Ellie cast off, leaving the canoe at the mooring. The sails filled and the boat advanced. Cat's paws, Bill said. Ben and I marveled at the white sails and the blue water. We saw the houses get smaller and smaller. After a while, Bill cried out, "Hard a lee!" He pushed the tiller and the sails flapped, and we were off in a new direction. Ben got sleepy and went to sleep. Soon, I too snuggled down into the sailbags. Sometime later, the sound of water rushing under the hull woke us up. "Whitecaps," Bill said. The lake was covered in breaking waves. The boat cracked and pounded. Suddenly, the boat heeled over so steeply that it caused Ben and I to slide to the low side. Ben's mouth was opening and closing in terror. His lips were blue, and I prayed. I prayed, "Our Father who art in heaven, our Father who art in heaven." "Hard a lee," Bill cried. He pushed the tiller, the sails slapped into the other side. The boat heeled over again. Ben and I slid again. How long could we endure? The deep water so close was rushing by. Ellie cried out, "Yahoo!" Spray whipped over the boat. The centerboard began humming like a harp string. Thus, Al Butler.
Nice.
And I'm not sure, I think we have another song, so.
Oh, no, no more songs.
Oh, good.
My mother-in-law died about a week ago, And
Yeah.
she also lived a beautiful long life. But the story I always tell about my mother-in-law is that I would go with her to the Unitarian church, and we'd inevitably be there a few minutes late, and we'd sit down, and she couldn't hear very well, and so I'd be getting her program and her hearing aid set, and they'd start singing a song, and she'd turn to me and she'd say, "God, why do they pick these songs that nobody knows how to sing?" So I'm sorry I did that to all of you. That was my choice of song. I hope you were able to read the words, because it does reflect my father's love of the idea of world peace. So the lyrics,
It was fine.
The lyrics are beautiful. The song, the melody is beautiful, but a little hard to sing. So anyhow, thank you for
It worked.
humoring me. Of the interconnectedness of all life. He was an environmentalist. He valued every human that he encountered. My parents opened their doors to people from all over the world. We had guests from Argentina and Sri Lanka and Japan and China and Argentina and Germany and France and Mexico, and it just goes on and on.
Uganda.
Uganda, yeah. So, if you don't have words, please cozy up to somebody who does, and join me in these words that remind us of this beauty of this beautiful planet. I'm doing what I was afraid Ed would do if he got up to the mic. But I just wanted to say that my brother Al's
sibling.
last
Right,
conversation
Lori.
with my father before he died, he told Al, my time is running out. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to be on this good earth. And when we think of my dad saying this good earth, that's sort of what tugs at our hearts. So this is a prayer about this good earth. So we can all read together, please. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. Now, actually, I am going to invite you up, Ed, because you get to introduce this last song and explain why we're singing it. Okay. And Paul, are you available?
This
yeah,
song.
This song.
Okay.
Now you got him started.
This is the song that my dad always sang. I think we're talking about, yep. And my dad put ship's radios and radar. He repaired the radios and installed this new technology, radar, on. He was attached to the Navy as a RCA employee, a civilian. And he bunked with the officers on these ships, and they'd go out on, what's it called? They make their rounds out, and another officer would bunk with him. And I can just imagine all the wild times I never heard about, because my friends have kids, and those kids never heard about all the wild times that we lived. So I can only imagine, but I do know he tipped a beer or two in Australia, and he'd have all these stupid songs from the beer halls in Australia. One of them, I'd just like to sing a solo. Every birthday, he'd sing this to us. Why were you born so beautiful? Why were you born so tall? Why were you born so beautiful? Why were you born at all? And he knows Australian. But this one, everybody's heard of this one. Look we got accompaniment.
We can all sing.
Wait, no, Bruce gonna lead this one.
Oh, JC.
Well, yeah, we're brothers.
Oh yeah, that's my ski buddies.
So,
Oh, yeah.
as Ed has been explaining, this is a favorite song of Bill's and one that he learned while he was stationed in Australia during World War II. It seems an odd selection. The lyrics have nothing to do with anything. I'll explain them briefly. You may have a lyric sheet, but you may be wondering what the heck we'll be singing. Well, the title is Australian slang for traveling on foot, waltzing, with one's belonging in a Matilda, which is a swag bag slung over one's back. The song narrates the story of an itinerant worker or swag man making a drink of tea cooked in a billy can or at a billabong, which is a watering hole. And he captures a stray jumbuck, a sheep that has come down to the water hole to drink. He captures that sheep to eat, but as fate would have it, the jumbuck's owner, a squatter or stockman, and 3 troopers, mounted policemen, pursue the swagman for theft, and he declares, "You'll never catch me alive," and commits suicide by drowning himself in the billabong, after which his ghost haunts the site. Now, Waltzing Matilda is one of those songs that it's much more important to sing loudly than to sing well. And so when the lyrics might be confusing, I hope you have copies, but when the chorus comes around, please, please sing it loudly enough to ring the rafters in the halls of heaven. Paul will bring us in on guitar.
All right, hang on a second.
Once a jolly swagman camped beside a billabong under the shade of the coolibah tree, and he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. "You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me, waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." And he sang as he watched and he waited till his belly boiled. "You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." Along came a jumbuck to drink beside the billabong. Up jumped the swagman and grabbed him with glee. He sang as he stowed that jumbuck in his tucker bag, "You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me, waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy long. "You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." Up rode the squatter, mounted on his thoroughbred. Down came the troopers, 1, 2, 3. "Who's that jolly jumbuck you've got in your tucker bag? You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me, waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." "Who's that jolly jumbuck you've got in your tucker bag? You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." Up jumped the swagman and leapt into the billabong. "You'll never catch me alive," said he, and his ghost may be heard as you come upon that billabong. "You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me, waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." And his ghost may be heard as you come upon that billabong. "You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." Once more. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. And his ghost may be heard as you come upon that billabong. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me.
Mr. Get Down himself, Louis Hauser's Martin.